Biogeochemical cycles. The flow of chemical elements and compounds between living organisms and the physical environment is called biogeochemical cycle. Chemicals absorbed and ingested by organisms are passed through the food chain and returned to the soil, air, and water by such mechanisms as respiration, excretion, and decomposition. As an element moves through this cycle, it often forms compound with other elements as a result of metabolic process in living tissues and of natural reactions in the atmosphere, hydrosphere, or lithosphere. Of the 92 elements produced in nature, only six are critical to the life of organisms: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Though these elements account for 95% of the mass of all living things, their importance extends far beyond the biosphere. Hydrogen and oxygen, chemically bonded in the form of water, are the focal point of the hydrosphere, while oxygen and nitrogen form the bulk of the atmosphere. All six are part of complex biogeochemical cycles in which they pass through the biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and aerosphere. These cycles circulate nutrients through the soil into plants, microbes, and animals, which return the element to the Earth's system through chemical processes that range from respiration to decomposition. Water cycle, most important cycle for life. Water is an integral part of life on this planet. It is an odorless, tasteless substance that covers more than three-fourths of the Earth's surface. Most of water on Earth, 97% to be exact, and salt water found in the oceans. We cannot drink salt water or use it for crops because of the salt content. We can remove salt from ocean water, but the process is very expensive. Only about 3% of earth water is fresh. 2% of the earth water, about 66% of all fresh water, is in solid form, found in ice caps and glaciers. Because it is frozen and so far away, the fresh water in ice caps is not available for use by people or plants. That leaves about 1% of all the earth water in the form of usable to humans and land animals. This fresh water is found in lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, and in ground. Small amount of water is found as vapor in the atmosphere. The hydrologic cycle begins with the evaporation of water from the surface of ocean. As moist air is lifted, it cools and water vapors condenses to form clouds. Moisture is transported around the globe until it returns to the surface as precipitation. Once the water reaches the ground, one of two processes may occur. Some of water may evaporate back into the atmosphere. The water may penetrate the surface and become groundwater. This is one important point in water cycle. Groundwater either seeps its way to into the oceans, rivers, and streams, or is released back into atmosphere through respiration. Water cycle, water and oceans, water in the form of glaciers, water in clouds, vapors, and some water are found underground here. Some water found freshwater habitats like springs, streams, rivers, etc. The balance of water that remains on the earth's surface is runoff, which empties into lakes, rivers, and streams and is carried back to the oceans, where the cycle begins again. The nitrogen cycle. Various processes are responsible for recycling the chemical necessary for life on Earth. The nitrogen cycle is the most complex of these. Carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus are the other main cycles. We are going to explore how nitrogen is cycled and the important role of microbes in this cycle. Nitrogen. Nitrogen is required by all living organisms for the synthesis of organic molecules such as amino acids, nucleic acids, and proteins. The Earth's atmosphere contains almost 80% nitrogen gas. It cannot be used in this form by most living organisms until it has been fixed. This is reduced combined with hydrogen to ammonia. Green plants, the main producer of organic matter, use the supply of fixed nitrogen to make protein that enter and pass through the food chain. Microorganisms, the decomposers, break down the proteins and excretions and dead organisms, releasing ammonium ions. These two processes form part of nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen fixing cell bacteria, nitrifying bacteria, nitrites, ammonium, nitrification, ammonification, nitrates, denitrifying bacteria, assimilation, plants, animals, nitrogen fixing bacteria. This is the whole cycle. The nitrogen cycle is the movement of nitrogen between the earth and the atmosphere. It consists of a series of processes that convert nitrogen gas into organic substances and these back to nitrogen in nature. It is a continuous cycle maintained by the decomposers and other bacteria. The nitrogen cycle can be broken down into four types of reaction, and microorganisms play roles in these entire. Nitrogen fixation, this is main important point in this cycle. Nitrogen gas is composed of two atoms of nitrogen linked by a very strong triple bond. This makes it chemically non-reactive and large amount of energy are required to break the bond. Nitrogen gas can be fixed in three ways. Atmospheric fixation. This occurs spontaneously by lightning. A small amount, 5 to 8% only, is fixed this way. Lightning allows nitrogen and oxygen to combine to produce various oxides of nitrogen. These are carried by rain into the soil, where they can be used by plants. Industrial fixation. The Haber process is used to make nitrogen containing fertilizers. This is a very energy inefficient process. Biological fixation. This is main important point. Nitrogen fixing bacteria fix 60% of nitrogen gas in the atmosphere. Biological fixation. The reduction of nitrogen gas to ammonia is energy intensive. It requires 16 molecules of ATP and a complex set of enzymes to break the bonds so that the nitrogen can combine with hydrogen. Its reduction can be written as N2 plus 3H2, 2NH3. Only a relatively few bacteria, the nitrogen fixing bacteria, are able to carry out this reaction. Fixed nitrogen is made available to plants by the death and lashes of free-living nitrogen-fixing bacteria or form the symbiotic association of some nitrogen-fixing bacteria with plants. Types of nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Some nitrogen-fixing bacteria are free-living in the soil, fixing nitrogen independently of the other organisms. For example, Azotobacter aerobic and Clostridium anaerobic. Some nitrogen-fixing bacteria, for example, Rhizobium, form symbiotic association with roots of leguminous plants and appear in the form of swellings called nodules. Free-living rhizobia invade the legume through an infection thread found in the root hair of the plant. These are root nodules found in pea plants, peanuts, etc. The infection thread is constructed by root cells and not the bacteria and is formed only in response to infection. The infection thread grows through the root hair cells and penetrate other root cells nearby, often with branching of the thread. The root cells then proliferate to form a root nodule. Within a week of infection, small nodules are visible to the naked eye. Each root nodule is packed with thousands of living rhizobium bacteria. Root nodulated non-legume as a diverse group of woody species such as alder with, for example, Frankia. These filamentous bacteria infect the root of plants, forming actinorhizal root nodules. Anabina azole is a cyanobacterium that infects new leaves of azolla as they develop from the stem. Strings of Anabina get caught in tiny leaf hairs that grow for a dimple on the developing leaf. The dimple grows larger into a pouch-like structure that eventually closes up, locking the Anabina inside the leaf. Adapting to their environment, nitrogen-fixing bacteria contain an enzyme complex called nitrogenase, which catalyzes the conversion of nitrogen gas to ammonia. It supplies hydrogen as well as energy from ATP. The nitrogenase complex is sensitive to oxygen, becoming inactivated when exposed to it. This is not a problem with the free-living anaerobic bacteria such as Clostridium. Free-living anaerobic bacteria have a variety of different mechanisms for protecting the nitrogenase complex, including high rates of metabolism and physical barriers. Azotobacter overcomes this problem by having the highest rate of respiration of any organism, thus maintaining a low level of oxygen in their cells. Rhizobium contains legumoglobin, function similar to hemoglobin. It binds to oxygen. It provides sufficient oxygen for metabolic functions of the bacteroids, but prevents the accumulation of free oxygen that would destroy the activity of nitrogenase. Frankia and Anabina are able to exclude oxygen by carrying out the fixation in specialized structures known respectively as a vesicle and heterocyst. The thick walls of the vesicle and heterocyst form an oxygen diffusion barrier. Nitrification. This is the oxidation of ammonium compound to nitrites and then to nitrates by the nitrifying bacteria. During these oxidation reactions, energy is released. The nitrifying bacteria are chemoautotrophs and are able to use their source of energy to produce organic compounds from organic ones. Photoautotrophs use light energy to produce organic compounds from inorganic ones. Nitrification is a two-step process. Bacteria of the genus Nitrosomonas convert ammonium ions to nitrites. NO2. Nitrate is toxic to plants and animals in high concentrations. Bacteria of the genus Nitrobacter convert nitrates to nitrates NO3. The nitrates can be taken in by plants. Nitrification occurs in well-drained and aerated soil at neutral pH. Denitrification. This is the conversion of nitrates into primary nitrogen gas but also nitrous oxide gas by the denitrifying bacteria. Pseudomonas NO3 N2 plus NO2. Denitrifying bacteria transform nitrate in extremely wet soils and swampy grounds where there is very little oxygen. The conditions are anaerobic. The bacteria get the oxygen they need for respiration from the breakdown of nitrates. The gases that are formed escape into the atmosphere, completing the nitrogen cycle. This can be harmful process as fixed nitrogen is removed from the soil, making it less fertile. Ammonification. This is the conversion of organic forms of nitrogen, for example, indeed organisms and their excretions, into organic nitrogen. A wide range of soil, fungi and bacteria called the decomposers carry out the ammonification process. The decomposers consume the organic matter and the nitrogen contained in the dead organism is converted to ammonium ions. The ammonium is then converted to nitrates by the nitrifying bacteria. Energy flow through an ecosystem. Ecosystems maintain themselves by cycling energy and nutrients obtained from external sources. At the first trophic level, primary producers, plant, algae, and some bacteria use solar energy to produce organic plant material through photosynthesis. Herbivorous animals that feed solely on plants make up the second trophic level. Predators that eat herbivores comprise the third trophic level. If larger predators are present, they represent still higher trophic levels. Organisms that feed at several trophic levels, for example, grizzly bears that eat berries and salmon, are classified at the highest of the trophic levels at which they feed. Decomposers, which include bacteria, fungi, molds, worms, and insects, break down vast and dead organisms and return nutrients to the soil. Decomposers process large amount of organic material and return nutrients to the ecosystem in inorganic form, which is then taken up again by primary producers. Energy is not recycled during decomposition, but rather is released mostly as heat. On average, about 10% of net energy production at one trophic level is passed on to the next level. Processes that reduce the energy transferred between trophic levels include respiration, growth and reproduction, nidification, and non-predatory death organisms that die but are not eaten by consumers. The nutritional quality of material that is consumed also influences how efficiently energy is transferred because consumers can convert high quality food sources into new living tissues more efficiently than low quality food sources. The low rate of energy transfer between trophic levels make decomposers generally more important than producers in terms of energy flow. Grass and net primary productivity. An ecosystem grass primary productivity is the total amount of organic matter that it produces through photosynthesis. Net primary productivity. describes the amount of energy that remains available for plant growth. After subtracting the fraction that plants use for respiration, productivity, a land ecosystem generally rises with temperature up to about 30%, after which it is declines. It is positively correlated with moisture on land primary productivity, thus as highest in warm, wet zones in the tropics, where tropical forest biomes are located. In contrast, desert scrub ecosystems have lowest productivity because their climates are extremely hot and dry. In the oceans, light and nutrients are important controlling factors for productivity. Oceans. Light penetrate only into the uppermost level of the ocean. So, photosynthesis occurs in surface and near surface water. Marine primary productivity is high near coastlines and other areas where upwelling brings nutrients to the surface, promoting plankton blooms. Runoff from lands is also a source of nutrients in estuaries and along the continental shelves. Among aquatic ecosystems, algal beds and coral reefs have the highest net primary production, while the lowest rates occur in the open due to lack of nutrients in the illuminated surface layers. In contrast to land, where vascular plants carry out most primary production in the ocean is done by microscopic algae. Ecological pyramids. An ecological pyramid is a graphical representation designed to show the number of organisms, energy relationships, and biomass of an ecosystem. They are also called Altonian pyramids after Charles Alton, who developed the concept of ecological pyramids. Producers, organisms, usually green plants, form the base of the pyramid, with succeeding level above representing the different trophic levels respective position of the organism within ecological food chains. Succeeding level in the pyramid represent the dependence of the organism at a given level on the organism at lower level. There are three types of pyramids of numbers, of biomass, and energy. Pyramid of biomass. Biomass as renewable organic living material. A pyramid of biomass as a representation of the amount of energy contained in biomass. At different trophic levels for a particular time, it is measured in grams per meter square or calories per meter square. This demonstrates the amount of matter lost between trophic levels. Each level is dependent on its lower level for energy. Hence, the lower level determines how much energy will be available to the upper level. Also, energy is lost in transfers, so the amount of energy is less high of the pyramid. Pyramid of numbers. The pyramid of number represents the number of organisms in each trophic level. This pyramid consists of a flat of relationship between the number herbivores, primary consumers, first level carnivores, secondary consumers, second level carnivore, tertiary consumers, and so forth. This shape varies from ecosystem to ecosystem because the number of organisms at each level is variable. Pyramid of energy. The pyramid of energy represents the total amount of energy consumed by each topic level. An energy pyramid is always upright as the total amount of energy available for utilization in the layers above is less than the energy available in the lower levels. This happens because during energy transfer from the lower to higher level, some energy is always lost.